talking orgasms or openings? Okay. Which is your lady experiencing? Which is your lady experiencing? We had a really deep conversation with this in one of our, it was going to be our afterglows, but it was our personal afterglow. It was a personal afterglow. Around the difference between women receiving pleasure and actually being open to receiving orgasm. And it was a pretty deep conversation.
Yeah, it was really illuminating for me because we were having an exchange where it was time pressured and the likelihood of you reaching your orgasm was relatively minimal.
It was pretty slim.
Yeah.
It was pretty slim, yeah.
But there was still enjoyment there.
Yeah, of course.
And so I was curious to know, it's like, okay, if you were experiencing this sensation, was that, like, how far away from your orgasm were you?
Yeah, it was a beautiful question he asked. And I was in the shower, we were talking in the shower, I was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I was like a 2. It's like very low on the orgasm scale. And I mean, we were connecting for 20 minutes. And so sometimes, ladies, it's this energy that's like, okay, in 20 minutes, it takes our bodies just to really open and start the opening process to receiving pleasure, let alone orgasm. Sometimes. And so that was the case for me. It was like we were engaging. I knew that with the time limit that we had, chances were pretty slim that I was going to reach an orgasm. That's not always true, but sometimes we just know. Ladies and gents, sometimes we just know. It's like, yeah, if it comes, it'll be a huge surprise. And we love that.
Well, that was actually partly where the conversation went.
Yeah.
Because I asked, okay, you were like a 2. So then those moments where you're close to orgasm, if orgasm is a 10, what is that? And you said you're like, oh, that's maybe like a 6 or a 7.
6 or a 7, and then it comes suddenly.
Right, and that was really interesting and a bit of a surprise for me. It's like, oh, you can be at a 6 or a 7, and then it just jumps to a 10.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well then...
Within like 60 seconds, sometimes.
And I found that really interesting. Like, it's not necessarily a progressive build. We're not going through like that 7, 8, 9, 10 all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and what we ended up talking about, and I was kind of expressing, I was like, I feel like there's a difference between being in pleasure and being in a state of receiving in our bodies opening. And so for me, we can be in positions that will bring me pleasure because you're rubbing up against a different part of my body, I'm experiencing you differently, but it doesn't necessarily take me to orgasm.
Right.
So what I noticed is that in those moments, what's happening is my body's actually just opening more. And it's like preparing for more pleasure. But when I think about sometimes when we drop into intimate space, my body's contracted. Maybe I've been working really hard. Maybe I'm just coming out of my moon, whatever, right? My body internally is contracted. And so the more time that is spent playing inside my body and outside my body, the more that my body actually opens. And for me, opening is like a deep relaxation and a surrender to the opportunity of pleasure. From that more open space, it's far more likely that I'll be able to reach an orgasm because I'm open to receive it and I've released any contraction or any tension that's been held in my body.
Yeah, and I think you expressed, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the sensation or the position that gives you that opening and that pleasure isn't necessarily what will actually get you to a 10.
Right.
It's like, oh, I could be in this position for ages and I would just open more, but I wouldn't actually get to an orgasm.
Right. And I brought up, I was like, I don't know if that's because it's not available to me in that position. I don't know if it's just the way our anatomies are in that position, but I haven't experienced it yet. And so what I love about that conversation is it didn't actually feel limiting. No. It actually just felt like an opportunity that's like, well, you asked me, like, do you want to explore that? And I was like, of course. Yeah. Of course I do.
And I feel like part of the reason we're having this conversation is to illuminate. Because like that's not something that I was aware of previously. Like I'm aware that the opening will occur and this is the importance and the usefulness of giving time and allowing that to happen. But not knowing that, oh, okay, that kind of stimulation isn't actually going to get you there. I could just spend forever there if we're not having a conversation.
Yeah, of course.
And
thinking that he's getting me real good. Oh, she's loving this. I'm like, I'm a 2.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it, right? It's not for a lack of enjoyment.
Right.
It's just like, it has its novelty.
And it's not what's what your body is needing.
Right. For orgasm in
Right.
particular.
And
yeah.
that's
But
the
for
difference.
opening,
Yes.
and this is what we love about this conversation
Yes.
is like, it is a journey. And so I loved your inquiry and your questioning. I felt like it was so playful and so curious. I'm grateful for the way in which you brought that up. I'm also grateful for the way that I can communicate that openly with you, to where, I feel like my perception of the masculine brain, sorry guys, is that it's kind of like, and we're going. And ladies, sometimes we're like, no, we're just chilling here. We're just kind of baselining. But the guy's like, we're going, and there's this like misconception that we're on that journey together. And so if we don't speak about that and actually have these deeper conversations, we're going different directions. Right? It's like, no, okay, like we get lost.
Yeah, it ceases to be a conversation, ceases to be a dialogue.
And that's what sex really is.
Right.
Intimate exchange is like a dialogue between our bodies, y'all. It's a dialogue between our bodies.
It gets to be. It can be.
It can be.
Yeah.
A really beautiful dialogue between our bodies.
It's for me, it's like massage. It's a conversation.
Yeah, totally.
There's only so much I can perceive through touch, through intuition, through perception.
Yeah.
And then having actual language to fully communicate. And of course you can communicate beyond language, but I don't know your experience.
Yeah.
I'm only interpreting your experience.
This is why I love our afterglows, because if y'all aren't doing this, I'm going to keep preaching this afterglows. After you have intimate exchange, please take 5, 10, 15 minutes to just cuddle and be with your partner and regroup with your partner and talk about what that experience meant to you. If you want our afterglow prompts, please send us a message. They are absolutely incredible for helping you deepen in the intimate exchange that you just had. And why I love them is because we take that time to ask these types of questions. Like, hey, I know we had a time constriction. I know you weren't able to reach orgasm. And I'm actually curious, like, where were you on the scale of orgasm? And I would have never communicated that one way or the other, that that's where I was. It's just like, no, that was an experience that I offered myself for the pleasure of you in that experience. Gratefully.
Yes. Yeah.
Gratefully so.
Well, yes, exactly. And for us, sexual exchange is like a medicine journey, or it can be. And integration is such a key part of that. What did I learn from this experience? What did I learn about my partner? What did I learn about us from this experience? And if you don't know how to have that kind of conversation, that is exactly why we made that guidebook.
Afterglow guidebook, yeah. It's amazing. And the whole reason for creating it is like we see the ways in which couples in our space, our clients, struggle with being able to talk about sex, especially the parts of sex that are less than pleasurable or that don't satisfy them. And so to give an opportunity to say, hey, we tried this thing and I actually noticed it was incredibly uncomfortable for me, or I prefer this instead, right? We actually give you communication framework for how to speak those things into existence so they don't feel like rejection or blaming your partner.
Feedback doesn't have to be criticism, or doesn't have to be received as criticism. Now, that can be challenging. I'd say maybe predominantly for the masculine, but also for the feminine as well.
It just depends on how it's communicated.
Right. The ability to receive feedback and not take it as a criticism, that is a skill, and one worth nourishing in a dynamic.
Of course. And how you deliver is a skill, right? Work in progress. Like, we are not talking about perfection. We are not perfect examples, speaking for myself. And so the ability to even just practice saying the more challenging things, practice giving gratitude for what your partner did and what you loved, right? Like, we talk about the ice cream sandwich where it's like the 2 compliments and then all the stuff that's kind of a bit rough on the inside, right? The ice cream aspect. Being able to then talk about what you loved, talk about what you maybe didn't love so much, and then at the end of the conversation, bring it back to gratitude for what you're learning about each other, your bodies, and your intimacy.
And this is actually where conflict resolution playbook is going to play in.
Yeah.
It's like the ability to do that in a healthy way. That's a resource we have coming soon.
Whole other download.
Yeah, whole other download. But and it's that ability to return to gratitude, like you were saying. It's like, okay, thank you for expressing that. I imagine that wasn't easy for you to share. It might not have been easy for me to receive. And I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to bring that to the altar of us.
Of our love.
Yeah, so that we could grow from it and deepen our intimacy.
So we're excited for y'all to drop in, whoever gets this Afterglow workbook. I pray into that it absolutely changes the intimate connection you have with your partner and that it deepens your sexual connection as well, because we don't know what we don't know. And so if we don't speak up for our desires, our likes, our dislikes, our partner's going to keep going about the same thing, thinking that it's all good.
Right.
And we're like,
what do you mean you're a 2?
Silently suffering over here. Like, doesn't he know I'm bored?
She's definitely a 9. Oh, you're a 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us.
Ego crush.
Yeah. If you use the Afterglow workbook, tell us. We'd love to hear.
We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah.
And if you would like more support from us on helping re-educate how you connect to intimacy, please feel free to reach out and book a call. We would love to connect with you to see how we can support you in deepening your intimate connections.
Alchemy of intimacy.
Woo, let's go, baby.
Yeah.
Have an amazing day, everybody. Woo. Ow.